Hello everybody, this is an introduction to translation class, more exactly TEM. TEM is just a translation from French to English. The first point to discuss is what is translation. Basically, translation is a process of finding a text equivalent into another text. The first text is called target text and the second source text. Translation then is a craft consisting in the attempt to replace a written message in one language by the same message in another language. In fact, the process is very challenging. You have to study the lexicon, you have to understand the culture, you also have to understand the situation in which text number one has been written. But what are the characteristics of language which affect translation? You have the meaning components, and you also have lexical items. All these items are to be considered. The translator has a goal, as everybody has one. The goal of a translation is to produce a receptor language text, which sometimes may be idiomatic. What it means is the same meaning as the source text language because it expresses the natural form of the receptor language. The meaning and not the form is receptive. It is sometimes necessary to change the form when translating, of course. It is also very necessary to avoid what is called literal translation, because literal translation is a way of following simply the form of the source language. Most of the time, if you do it, you fail your translation. There is also another way called idiomatic translation. It is a translation based on the original text or the source text. The basic overriding principle is that an idiomatic translation reproduces the meaning of the source language. How does a translator know that he is successful in his translation? When at long last he has achieved to translate exactly what source language has proposed. But the translation should be a dynamic process. We call dynamic process when the translator is able to convey even the emotional effect intended by the source number one. There are some other things to take into account whenever you are translating. Example, non-equivalence. Words from one language to another language do not have the same meaning. We need to be very careful about that. How do we handle then a non-translation? Sometimes we may use a more general word. Some other times we may use a more natural words. Sometimes we resort to what is called cultural substitution. In fact, we also may use a paraphrase, or sometimes we may translate by omission or by illustration. As you can see, translation needs to start from a project. That's why we need to have a project whenever we are translating. There are a number of matters in which the translator involves themselves before translating. The target is to be known, the tools must be understood and mastered. The text refers to the source language, for example, and we know the document to be translated. We also know the audience for whom or for which we are translating. How do we again establish a translation project. Co-translators, for example, when you are working in teams, we really need to master, all of you, the source language. We really need to be able to handle both source language and receptor languages. And after that, we form a group and we work together. So as you can see, the translation introduction leads to a series of possibilities for the job of translation. That's why, dear students, we really need to work it hard, knowing that at long last we can have a wonderful job as translator. Thank you for listening.